Hello? Baby?
We are at a moment in time when the questions of existence have shifted to integration. What you currently see is a global agreement on appearance. Whether you feel this image is threatening or not is up to your thought process. Remember, none of us are experts. We're all just a part of a plan. Through interpretation, defining moments in time are on the horizon.
I'm not supposed to talk. How do I say it? I've always known I'm not supposed to be talking.
Made only minor dents in the huge spike seen over the past week and a half.
And I saw. I mean, you couldn't miss them.
If anything, they're more curious about us as we are about them.
They wanted to borrow the ending, or borrow the negative.
What is that? Because they were in a formation.
And I remember seeing something in a flashing light. I couldn't tell the shape of whatever it was.
People are reporting seeing lights in the sky.
If you decided to use some of the equipment that was referred by Steve Barone in Chapter 5, UFOs over Vegas, you're gonna need to grab a tripod because you may end up being out there for hours or even the entire night. You want to keep your video as stable as possible. By using a tripod, you will stabilize your footage. Nobody enjoys looking at shaky UFO footage. One thing I recommend is this. Once you're set up and you're ready for the hunt, follow these simple photography rules. While you're shooting video of the night sky, you always want to look in the opposite direction in which your camera is facing and recording. What's going down in front of you could be happening behind you. The camera is your secondary set of eyes, meaning you can always go back and watch what you recorded. So pay attention to what's going on behind you because something could appear. Another thing, never delete your footage. Go home and view it. Really study the footage because the camera captures things that the eyes will not see. Once you know what to look for, you'll never observe the night sky like you did in the past. It comes to life, displaying vehicles and flight patterns that are unconventional to the eye of the public. In my experience of filming and observing the sky, the aerial vehicles that have been witnessed display flight patterns and sometimes sequences of aviation lights. They are hard to see in real time, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. There are single vehicles that look like orbs made of light. If they are part of a fleet, there's 4 different colors you'll commonly see. The most popular reports are of white lights. Sometimes just one, and others there's multiple. In most cases, they just glide across the sky, shift directions, will disappear, and in other instances, you'll catch them in groups, forming different shapes and patterns, displaying intelligence as they maneuver through the air. The yellow orbs just glide at extremely high altitudes, making calculated turns, almost never traveling at high speeds. It's like they want to be noticed. Other sightings show red orbs, traveling sometimes at very high speeds. Through my observations, I've learned that these are unofficially known as the TR-3B, or different variations like the aurora. In these images, you see it start off as a solid red object, and through its descent, the solid red light then begins to display a black triangular form at each point of the vehicle. If you happen to catch a UAP that is blue, that's not so common.
Come on, look at how it's moving.
It's not moving.
Where's it go?
It's a pole.
Look, it's going up. Oh my God, that thing's fucking moving. Look, it's going down. What's the matter with you? You don't see that? Come here.
Where'd it go? It disappeared.
It's still there. It's in the pole.
No, oh shit. Disappeared again.
right there.
What is it?
It's not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Come on, lights just don't. This ain't a Christmas tree over there.
Yeah.
Look,
Look, look, it's moving fast.
Not that fast. It's fucking lights up.
Oh shit! Look at it. It moved from one
It
section
looks
to the
like
next.
it's doing a fucking circle. Do you see any lights going on?
Someone fly some, you know, like Amazon will deliver shit like
That ain't
drone.
normal.
And like a toy drone with some fucking light.
I saw that blue light in the parking lot of the pizzeria one day.
Yeah, some kid flying a drone.
Yeah.
I know.
You know?
Look.
How do you
yeah,
know?
I know. Look.
It looks like it's circling.
It's like fucking weird.
Hey, what is that thing doing? Now it's going down.
I just think it seems like
Because some kid is flying up and down. Damn yeah. It's a fucking like a toy drone.
What the fuck? Toy drone? I don't
Yeah,
think
come
we
on,
see it
Victor.
from here.
That high?
Yeah.
Look, that shit's high, bro.
Their characteristics are unique because they are capable of high speeds, disappearing and reappearing in different locations, the ability to hover, and some reports show interactions with humans on ground level.
Dude, they're real, man. If you stare at the sky long enough, I mean, I tell people you just gotta stare at the sky long enough, and you will see these things. You know, and people don't believe it, and they're like, "Oh, it's just satellite." I'm like, "No, dude, this is no satellites, man. Whatever it is, it literally it's smart enough to know that you are interacting with it." So again, this is something that was very intriguing to me because I'm serious. If it wasn't for my stepson and my stepdaughter having seen the same thing I saw, I would have thought I was crazy, man. I opened up a can of worms, man. I tell you, I'm like, without even intentionally thinking that I really, honestly, I didn't even think that I was going to have any form of communication back. You know, I merely thought, okay, you know what, I'm going to just play around with this light and see what happens. And Lord and behold, man, it's just boom, you know, we get the light shining upon us, and we're like, and it was just like, it felt like everything, just like I said, just felt like slow motion, but whatever it is was intense. It was luminous, bright blue, and it got us, man. And we're like, whoa, what in the world was this? I mean, every time I think about it, it's so surreal. I had an experience, and actually my stepson and my stepdaughter, we all shared an experience with definitely a being or UFO or, well, an encounter from out there, from outer space, if you want to call it. We don't know what it is or what it was. And in our particular incident, we actually, before I go into the incident, I will mention that both my stepson and my stepdaughter, about 2 weeks before this incident happened, you know, they had ran into the house all excited, and them had seen a light coming from the sky. Honestly, the family, the other siblings, we didn't take them too serious about what they had seen. And as a matter of fact, we didn't even ask them about what had happened or what they had seen. Or, I mean, we just kind of dismissed it and invalidated the whole, okay, so you saw a light, great. But anyways, we were using the swimming pool, and in the house where we were renting out here in Yuma, the pool and the jacuzzi, they both had like these high luminescent LED lights that you can actually control the different colors of lights that they produce by playing with the toggle switch. And depending on the number of toggles that you toggle the lights with, you can actually produce different colors of lights to come on and or keep it on a particular light. And in this particular day or evening, because it was late at night, in this particular evening, I had actually toggled it to a bright blue, not a dark blue, but a baby bluish light. Why I did this light, and to this day and age, I'm not too particular sure, but one of the things that before we actually got the light that shined upon us, we have been watching the sky late at night, I say we, my stepkids and the family, using the pool and just relaxing out in the pool late at night. And we had been watching these orbs up in the sky, these small orbs that will actually blend in with stars. So if you don't know what you're watching out in the sky, these lights and these orbs, they will trick you into us thinking that they're actually stars or celestial bodies, kind of like just being out there in space. They don't move or anything. But if you pay close attention, and every once in a while you will see these orbs kind of like just move around. They don't move in one particular direction. They're random. How come we weren't talking about this and addressing, with other people? And I did bring it up to a few friends before, and they were like, some of the locals around here, and they were like, well, it's just satellites, or it's just, shooting stars. And I said, you know what? No, these are not shooting stars. I've seen shooting stars, and I've seen satellites, and these are not those objects. Whatever these things are, they're intelligent because of the fact that they'll very meticulously move from one location over to another location, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, sometimes it's very rapidly. Again, their speeds and their directions were random. But anyways, we were in the jacuzzi, and so again, we had this bright blue light in the jacuzzi area, and as we were sitting there, I remember sharing with my stepkids about being in the military and being part of the communications battalion. And I said, you know what? Well, we kept on seeing this light over in the northern part of the sky, and also this according to my stepkids, this was the same area more or less where they saw this light, come down and shine upon them. And we kept on seeing kind of like these bursts of lights, more or less, in the sky, different days. So it's like, okay, you know what? And I don't know why I thought about this, but I said, you know what? I'm gonna see if I can actually make communications with this thing out there, whatever object that's out there. So I thought about binary code, ones and zeros. One basically being, if you were to translate it into kind of like think of it as on, and then the zeros being off, and eventually with binary codes, the combination of ones and zeros actually produce, your letters, alphanumeric digits, and of course in longer, faster sequences you can actually produce sentences and colors, etc. But anyways, I began playing with the light by covering it with my hands, and then rapidly opening and closing with my hands the light. These random motions. Now this LED light it was very out here in the Yuma area at nighttime. It was very, very bright. Partly because of the fact that we don't have that much street lighting around, and so it's very noticeable. So I began, playing around again with the light. But all of a sudden, I stopped and we were talking, and I didn't cover the light anymore. And as we were talking, all of a sudden, this bright blue beam just shines down upon us. And it was a perfect circular beam that just encompassed the jacuzzi area, and it only lasted for a fraction of a second or so. But at the same time, I recall just, things going in slow motion, and kind of like a feeling of not really being there altogether. And as soon as this light came in and left, and again, this was only a fraction of a second in what I usually describe in real time, it just felt like it was longer in some other kind of time. It felt like it was longer. And at the same moment, Jared, Ada, and myself, we all looked at each other like, and if it wasn't for them seeing the same thing that I had actually seen and experienced, and we had seen and experienced, I wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't believe it at all. It wasn't scary. It was more surprising than anything, and it wasn't a painful experience or anything like that. Again, it was just more kind of like a feeling of what just happened, curiosity, kind of like excitement that something had actually happened, and so we did actually tell a few friends and people from that we know out here in Yuma, but nobody had ever seen or heard of anything like that before. And so we kind of like stopped talking about it because of the fact that, you know, it wasn't, you know, too well accepted by some people. I guess they still don't believe in these things. And, you know, when you talk about these things, you kind of like put yourself in a situation where they want to ridicule you or mock you for what you've experienced. And I said, you know what, it's a shame, because something is out there.
Sometimes you'll catch craft that display multiple lights at once. Sightings of these have been reported since World War I and World War II. Pilots in the European theater reported seeing strange objects while flying that resemble Christmas lights, that had the ability to maneuver and take turns at high speeds, almost seeming to toy and play around with the pilots during flight. The different variations that were just discussed are pretty common in this area and other parts of the world. Now, let's take a look at one of the more compelling videos in the Barone files.
On August 10th, 2019, I was outside in my backyard with my original night vision monocular, the old school one. And anyway, I'm looking around the valley, and when I'm looking to the northeastern part of the valley, I'm staring at the Las Vegas mountain range, and I see a white-looking sphere or orb that appears to be heading generally in my direction. So I get the night vision on it, and so that people know, this night vision monocular does not come with any kind of a screen or anything like that. So I have to be kind of bent over a little bit and have one eye looking in the eyepiece so that I can follow this thing. And the other important thing that I always do is that I always use a tripod on every video I can. Once in a great while, there may be something that I have to do at handheld, but this is using a tripod. And when I'm following the object, I can't actually see it because I'm looking through this eyepiece. So like right now, you see I've zoomed in a little bit. The reason I did it on this one is that the object didn't appear to be a perfect circle. Or perfectly round. It seemed a little bit oblong, which tells me it's very possible that there might be a second object so close to it, but that it looks like one object. I'm not sure, but later on in the video, you're going to see the same looking thing return. And I don't know if it's going to be this object or another one. You know, this wasn't overly exciting, but at this point in time, too, this late in doing this for all these years, I know now that these kind of objects can appear out of nowhere. I do have one video where I got lucky and watched this thing just manifest out of nothing. A clear, thin air, not a cloud in the sky. And it became a real light red mist, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you have a full-fledged glowing orb. But anyway, it's not going to be too long now before the main event in this video happens, and you can tell I'm moving it as it's going. The other thing is, I basically know that it was up pretty high up because there's a point where you just see the tops of the palm trees, and you never see the Spring Mountains or La Madre Mountain in particular in back of it. So it was up high enough where those objects couldn't be seen. So anyway, I'm just following it, and you know, and I've learned that I always stay with them.
This video clip displays one of those rare moments when you're focused and filming on an object, and then something strange ends up in your viewfinder. The night sky is very busy when Steve notices a single white light traveling through the Vegas night sky. This is pretty common in the Las Vegas area. He's tracking the object, trying to identify what this craft could actually be. One thing that I always promise to you, the viewer, is to bring you fresh UFO content. Well, here you go.
And there it goes right there.
A tube-shaped white object zips past the screen.
I saw that thing come through the screen.
This type of capture is so rare, and also the reason why you never delete your footage. This UAP zips past the screen in less than a second. If you blinked, you wouldn't have seen it. Now let's slow down this video and look at the characteristics of this unexplained aerial phenomenon. First, it appears to be glowing, bright white, with no windows or identifying marks that resemble modern aviation. In slow motion, you also notice there's a trail that follows the craft, which could be energy being released that was generated from the craft. Or it could be free energy within the atmosphere that the craft is not only able to harness, but use it during mid-flight. Based off of the size and speed, the object is much closer than the single orb that was initially being tracked. Looking at this UAP, I cannot help but think of the Tic Tac that's being discussed heavily in present day. This could be an up-close shot of exactly that, based off of the most recent disclosure event that took place with NASA and its similarities to the footage that the government released back in September of 2019.
As I'm looking in there, because I always have to follow these things, and I continued following the original sphere, or spheres, because I knew there was no way I could catch it for two reasons. One reason is that eventually this thing's going to run in where it gets behind a tree that was in my yard that day, and then right next to the tree is my house. So I didn't try to follow this thing. And the other part is I didn't know exactly what it was when it went through the screen because it did it so quickly. It should be getting to the part here where you're going to start seeing a kind of a pinkish hue, and you can see where it starts going behind the tree, and you can see it shining there, and next thing you know, it's behind the house. Okay, so here it is. There's that foggy looking pink, which is just a plum tree that was there. You can't really make it out, but you can still see the light from it, and then it goes behind the house, and that's where I cut it off. So just less than a minute later, then begins the second part of the video, and now I've moved, it's not even 5 minutes since that amazing object went through the screen, that now I'm filming this, and I've turned back. This one's lower, it's lower, and it's still coming the same direction. I didn't see it coming all the way from the Las Vegas mountains this time, but it seemed to be going the same direction, and this time it's lower, and it seems to be closer. At this point here, I've zoomed in a little bit, and it's actually painfully slow. When I put these videos out, I speed this up a little bit because people get bored and they stop watching the video, and they miss a lot of important parts of the video. But I'm staying with it right here. Once again, now I'm still looking. I'm looking to the north. You can't see the mountains in the background because they're far enough back where they're not really showing. But you see how slow that thing's going. And I just keep following it because I know from experience that these are amazing objects, and they're capable of doing more than just one thing. As the years went by, I eventually saw them changing and morphing into something else, where it might look more like an airplane, where just a different look to it. And it seems like they have different assignments at times of what they might be doing, because when I began looking at these things and I began seeing them, once I got the night vision monocular, I was blown away, because the typical kind of formation and stuff that they would have, would there be at least 4 of them, and they would do basically aerobatics, and it looks like they were forming different kinds of patterns. They could be constellations, it could be mathematical, I don't know what they do. I mean, my general feeling of watching these things over time is it just seemed like they were having a good time. So anyway, it's at this point now that when you look at the screen, you see I have a neighbor below me, just north of my house, where we are up much higher, and that's why I can see so much. But you can see this roof and the shingles that are on there, and this thing seems to just be slowly approaching. I'm not sure exactly how far away it is, but there's a point where it just stops, like right now, and you notice the brightness of this thing intensifies incredibly. And I forget for how long this thing sits there. I think it sits there for almost 3 minutes and just glows. I don't know if it knew I was shooting video of it, but I got the feeling at the time it seemed like it was just coming over just to say hello. I know that sounds really strange, and it could be that wasn't it at all, but I do believe that this thing was very close. And it's funny because I was so excited originally about the Tic Tac style object flying through the screen, which will be covered much better. I didn't really even pay much attention to this part because the white sphere kind of became the lesser important object because of never seeing one of these tube-shaped objects before. So anyway, it's just sitting there glowing brightly, and I just keep watching it, and eventually it's going to turn around and go back the other way and leave. And sometimes these things, they're so slow when they move, you're not sure if it's even a sphere or an orb. But once again, now I back away, and it looks like this thing now is backed away as well, and decrease the brightness, and it's on its way. It's going to leave and go back wherever it started. Like I say, this is one of my favorites. It's funny because sometimes you start thinking that maybe you've seen just about everything, and then something new happens, something new like this. And I couldn't wait to get inside. I didn't even follow this thing the rest of the way out when it departed, because I was so excited to get inside and see what I had already saw go through the screen.
No matter where you go for your daily information, news, or current events, you can't help but notice that UFOs and the subject of aliens has been a hot topic for the past 4 years. With the release of official military video showing unidentified flying objects that are able to maneuver and accelerate at high speeds and cover vast amounts of ground in seconds, non-believers are being forced to ask the question, are aliens real? In order to have a better understanding of how this question should be answered, let's take a look at the word itself. Throughout history, words are changed to fit present-day language. For instance, let's take a look at the word marijuana. It's a very popular word in present day. It was first introduced at a time when Big Pharma was on the rise. This era is known as the race to injectables. Not to get too far off topic, but when marijuana and opioids were going through test trials to be produced in an injectable form, production between both products began. In the end, the viscosity of THC was too thick for an injectable form. Shortly after, the word marijuana was introduced to the public, and campaigns against the product were put in place. What word was used prior to this? Cannabis. When you look at the word cannabis, there's thousands of years of written, painting, and pictorial evidence. You'll also discover a vast amount of information on the important figures in history that used it for medicinal purposes, the healing traits behind the plant, and how the human body has cannabinoid receptors. Now look at the word aliens. Did humans use the word aliens 1,000 years ago? Of course, the answer is no. Well, what were they called back then?
In the 30th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I was among the exiles by the Kabar Canal, the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. On the 5th day of the month, it was the 5th year of the exile of King Jehoiakim. The word of the Lord came to Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans by the Kabar Canal, and the hand of the Lord was upon him there. As I looked, behold, a stormy wind came out of the north, and a great cloud with brightness around it, and fire flashing forth continually, and in the midst of the fire, as it were gleaming metal. And from the midst of it came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had a human likeness.
Intervention from a higher source of intelligence has consistently been recorded throughout history. Let's take a look at the Bible, for example. As we do this, please don't look at this book from a religious perspective. We will look at some of the verses in this book just as recorded history that actually happened. In the Bible, the UFOs of those days were known as chariots of fire or flying scrolls. Some stories, scriptures, and events that displayed technology that was ahead of its time. Modern pop culture films like The Phoenix Forgotten depict Ezekiel's wheel in present day, abducting 3 people who wandered into the sacred Arizona desert back in March of 1997. Biblical references to UFOs and unexplained aerial phenomena still influence the thought process in modern day. Through art, the human mind began to develop cognitive thinking, and our early ancestors began to express what they witnessed through spit cave paintings, portraying depictions of strange objects in the sky and the existence of a race of beings that looked a little different than modern day humans. Even though their names has changed in the present, they've always existed. The creative minds that commissioned the statues, coins, and paintings all must have had experiences with UAPs and unidentified flying objects because they took the time to acknowledge them in their work. Some of the most famous paintings in history show strange objects in the sky. In this single image that was captured by Steve, he noticed an object in the sky, grabbed his camera, and began to shoot what he thought was video. But he actually took one picture. And this is the reason why he ended up with only one image. He went to switch to video, put the camera back in the sky, and the object was gone. Through observation, when you look at this object, its appearance is extremely familiar. Its characteristics are identical to the UFO that's in the painting called This painting is attributed to more than one artist, and it's located in a museum in Florence, Italy. Mary, the mother of Jesus, is seen looking down, while in the background, something very unusual is taking place. The craft has a glowing aura surrounding it, and it definitely has the man's attention. The photo that Steve took happened this year over Las Vegas, and it's eerily similar to the object that was seen in the painting known as the Madonna and Child, commissioned in the 15th century. These activities aren't happening just in the United States. This is a worldwide phenomenon that has had very long-lasting effects on many civilizations throughout history, even dating back to the birth of Jesus. Another painting to look at, currently hung in a museum in Cambridge. It was painted by a Dutch artist in 1710. Due to his strong affiliation to Rembrandt, this painting of his is considered to be projecting secret knowledge to the public. The painting shows 4 columns of light being emitted from a disc-like object onto the baptism happening below. In the center, you'll notice a white dove. This interesting painting hung in Cavosso shows 2 UFOs at the top in both corners. The UFO in the top right, the pilot seems to be looking back at the craft behind him. One thing to take note of is neither of these pilots have a halo around their head, which discards the possibility of them being divine beings or depicting divine objects. The transfiguration of Jesus that was witnessed by his 3 apostles, Peter, James, and John. It was documented that they went to a top of a mountain and witnessed a man turn into light. These actions were followed by 2 Old Testament figures, Moses and Elijah, that appeared and began to speak with Jesus. The location of this mountain where the transfiguration took place has been narrowed down to 2 locations: Mount Tabor and Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is also referenced as another location where activity involving beings from a higher power has taken place.
They call them the books that are taken out of the Bible, lost Bible books and stuff. I have those, but I'm going to will them to you. You ain't taking all my books. He already got the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Found amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Enoch labels Mount Hermon as a unique location where a group known as the Watchers came to and from Earth during the time of Jared.
The Watchers are, in the beginning, they were the ones to watch over. They were the ones to watch, but then they kind of turned. But they were the ones to watch. See, there's a whole lot it's like a kingdom. It is a kingdom. Certain angels were assigned to certain duties, and they had the Watchers, and a lot of them turned. So, they say 1/3 of the angelic host, but we don't know how large is the angelic host. If every human being has a bunch of angels assigned to them, so imagine how many angels there are. Well, really, we don't know, because that's all in the creation. The creation of the universe. See, when God created the universe, He created the invisible universe first. That means the spiritual side, the angels, and all of them were created before He created the visible side. The earth, that when we see earth, heaven, the stars, There's an invisible side, a spiritual side, which was created first. See, it's understanding the scriptures. And so when he created the angels, now we don't know how long it took or how long they've been in existence up there, in the heavenly realms. We don't know. And he created the angels and all them. And then he created them for one purpose only, to be messengers. Their angels are messengers. They bring messages from God to us. And so that's why it tells you to be careful of who you treat and how you speak to someone, because you don't know if it's an angel. That's in scripture, and Sweetheart would say that all the time. Be careful of who how you treat people, because you never know if that person is an actual angel coming to bring you a message. So that's the purpose of the angels, also to guide us and to fight for us in the spiritual world, because the spiritual world is the side of the spiritual world that's against us, that wants to take us to hell, that wants our soul. So there's angels assigned to each and every one of us. Each and every one of us has a bunch of angels that are assigned to us to protect us, to guide us, to lead us, dangers coming. So when God created the angels, the one angel that was so beautiful and so majestic was Lucifer. Lucifer. Now, Lucifer was one of God's angels, his angelic angels, good angels. But Lucifer wanted to be God. And he had some followers up in heaven. He had some angelic, holy angels that God created in heaven that followed him. And so we don't know exactly when or how God kicked them out of heaven. But when he kicked them out of heaven, earth was already created. What we know as our universe was already created. And he kicked them out. And so there's a whole lot of, you have to really go into the history of why one certain tree in the Garden of Eden was, we could eat everything in the whole garden except for one. And that one tree was the one that opened our minds to the knowledge of good and evil. Because see, when Adam and Eve was created, they only knew good. He kicked Lucifer out onto earth. But when that happened, how it happened, we don't know. We really don't know. Because you get a lot of answers. But all the angels were angelic, and some just rebelled. God created the angels, one bunch of angelic, like the human race, all people, and rebellion is the greatest sin. Rebellion, they rebelled against God. And so when he kicked them out, and that's why Lucifer, he wanted to be God. He wanted to sit on the throne of God. Because he thought he was it. And that's where pride and conceit and all that stuff appear, because that's Satan with his host of angels that followed him are whispering in the ears of human race, do this, rebel, fight, do this and do that. But then you have the good angels that are with you, telling you, go this way, don't do that.
Located in southern Lebanon, this mountain range and its mathematical position is where the Watchers arrived and left Earth. It also sits on the 33rd parallel north and the 33rd parallel east, which fits the exact mathematical makeup and percentage of the Watchers that fell from the heavens. If you're unfamiliar with the story of the Watchers, the Creator made the Watchers to look over humanity. Some of them decided to show defiance by sharing knowledge with mankind and bearing children to the daughters of men. This was a part of an oath that was taken between the fallen angels. It's widely known that this is an attempt to corrupt the pure bloodline of humanity to prevent the birth of Jesus. The Creator punished them for their wrongdoing, and a third of them fell to earth. The center point of the Mount Hermon range is where they made contact with earth. At its highest peak, where the transfiguration of Jesus took place, in present day, there is a UN radar outpost, which makes you ask the question, what is the UN doing there, and what are they looking for? Mount Hermon predates the flood of Noah, and there's a possibility that this book predicted the UFO wave in 1947. The famous Roswell incident that took place that same year, where Mount Hermon is located, in the exact point on the other side of the earth, is Roswell. They both exist on the 33rd parallel, with other cities like San Diego, nearby Los Angeles, and Phoenix. The 33rd parallel also runs right through the Dreamy Draw. Jesus said, "As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man." In the days of Noah, the floods occurred, and the Nephilim were around and existed afterwards. If you're unfamiliar with the word Nephilim, it equates to giants. They are a byproduct of the fallen angels and the daughters of men. Due to the fact that the Watchers fell on this parallel, this line that surrounds the globe, in Christianity is known as the Devil's Line. In modern times, the 33rd parallel is home to some of the biggest UFO sightings that have ever taken place. This is why some Christians associate aliens and UFOs with being demonic activities. When the Watchers fell, they lost their heavenly abilities, and that includes being able to fly back to the heavens. Also, you got to keep in mind, only a third of them fell, which means there's still 66% remaining that did not defy the rules of the Creator. The Vatican, in more recent years, has gone public for their beliefs of extraterrestrial life beyond this planet. Before they expressed their opinions, they always believed. This is why they built an observatory here in Arizona. In 1989, the Vatican built a telescope here in Arizona that's run by the Order of the Jesuits. It's called the Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope. Located on Mount Graham in its early stages, it was named This is a name that was given due to the instruments and different components that are involved by astronomers in its early stages. 3 facilities sit atop Mount Graham to form the Mount Graham International Observatory. They are all separate telescopes. There's a popular opinion that says the Vatican purposely named it this, and it's not true. It's labeled as a rumor and eventually caused the Vatican to rename it to Lucy. Lucy is not actually a telescope. It's a component that attaches to the telescope. They are pointed in the darkest spots in space, and they're actively searching for extragalactic signs of life. The Jesuits have been looking for extraterrestrial life since the 80s. One reason for these actions is because of a discovery that took place in North Phoenix during the 70s. A place of worship was discovered on top of this butte. Its initial discovery led archaeologists to believe that only the native peoples inhabited this area. A deeper look at the relics and symbols that were found revealed multiple groups were in this location and they existed together peacefully. Before the expulsion of the Jesuits took place, there was a man who earned the trust of the indigenous peoples. His name was Eusebio Kino, historically known as Father Kino or the Padre on horseback. He was a geographer, map maker, astronomer, mathematician, and explorer. His impact was felt in an area known as the Pimeria Alta in modern-day Sonora, Mexico, and southern Arizona. During his explorations, he ended up interacting with 16 different native tribes. Even though he was a Jesuit priest, he opposed many of the actions the Spaniards imposed on the indigenous peoples in this area. Through this, he gained the trust of most native tribes he encountered. Outside of his expedition to the Baja Peninsula, Kino hardly experienced hostility from the native peoples. In present day, it's widely known in this area that Father Kino was shown at least 2 of the legendary 7 cities of gold. If you're not familiar with the 7 cities of gold, here's a brief rundown. This is the main reason why the Spanish came here in the first place. A Moroccan explorer by the name of Esteban came to New Spain as a slave/spy for the Spaniards. He had many talents, like being a shaman, a healer, and he used this to gain the trust of the native peoples. For his work and good deeds, he was given a baby rattler made of gold and copper. He took this rattler to New Spain, which at this time was in present-day Mexico City. He reported the baby rattle he was given and told them he saw a city made of gold. Also known as Cibola y Quivera, the 7 cities of gold fueled the increased presence of the Spaniards in the New World. This name was on Spanish maps for almost 300 years. Father Kino was shown and also learned the secrets of the Apache Thunder God Mountain. While he was on this sacred journey, inside of this sacred mountain range, he was allowed to see one of the legendary cities of gold, as long as he never revealed its location. One of the Kino maps shows how he encoded that information in secrecy. Another reason why Kino was loved by the indigenous peoples was he didn't force Christianity onto them. Instead, he developed missions outside of the norm that went against the rules of New Spain. These places of worship were hidden in the mountain ranges to the north. All religious aspects and spirituality were celebrated and honored in these locations hidden in the desert. Father Kino did not live long enough to experience the expulsion of the Jesuit priest in 1767. During this time, the Jesuit priests were all rounded up, kicked out of New Spain, and taken back to the old world because the king thought the Jesuits were stealing gold and silver and other precious metals from the mining operations. Technically, the Jesuits weren't stealing. They were sending what is known as the King's Fifth, but also didn't factor in shipwrecks or pirates. The Jesuit priests were using the gold, silver, and other precious metals for relics in their secret places of worship, but they got a little flashy. There's an old legendary story that they crafted a 900-pound gold cross that later needed transport down the Salt River. The Apaches caught wind of this and attacked. Needless to say, it was very bloody on both ends. That 900-pound gold cross went missing and was never to be seen again. If you think this is false, that same gold cross is depicted here above this church, located in Phoenix. The man on the left of your screen is Father Kino, standing above his trademark, the horse. We'll get into that at a later time. During his life, Kino learned and respected the natives and their belief systems. He gained their trust through understanding the ways of each tribe. The Padre on horseback knew their creation stories, their gods, and the information encoded into their sacred relics. These places of worship were unknown to New Spain during the expulsion, and the relics within were immediately concealed and laid hidden in the rugged desert for hundreds of years. Their locations were etched in some form of map that was heavily coded and in many cases separated from its creator. The discovery of this unorthodox church, whose location is on a set of stone maps, led the Vatican to building their famous telescope here in Arizona. No other Jesuit in history has achieved what Father Kino was able to. He took many of his secrets to the grave, meaning he respected the natives' wishes, even if that meant breaking his oath to the Jesuit order. In modern times, these locations are being discovered due to the mountains in the area that are being torn down. The items that are found are protected under the Antiquities Act, and in most cases, they are viewed by the church simply because the Jesuit mining symbols that were found during the excavations. Now, I'm not saying Father Kino made these maps because that's highly unlikely. But what I will say is this: the person that made these maps was involved with the Catholic Church and could have possibly been a Jesuit. The vision on these stone maps fits Father Kino, and it's highly likely that they were inspired by him. The horse side of the map represents a certain time of year when the UFO activity in this stretch of mountains is at its highest. Before we go any further, it's important that we have understanding. I'm not trying to tell you what to think. I simply want you to think. There's an overwhelming amount of evidence that points to beings that exist outside of this realm, coming to and from Earth via Mount Hermon. It's a very rugged and secluded mountain range that sits on the 33rd parallel. The transfiguration of Jesus took place at this very same location. He turned into light, and 2 other beings of light visited him, while 3 apostles watched. Roswell sits on the exact same spot on the other side of the world, on the 33rd parallel. In almost every UFO sighting, the one commonality is light. They almost all involve light. The Phoenix Lights, or even the Battle of Los Angeles. All of these cities have 3 things in common. They sit on or extremely close to the 33rd parallel. They have increased amount of UFO sightings that are near extremely rugged mountain ranges. Now ask yourself this question: where does the government build most of their military bases? In the mountains. Ben Rich said, "We have the technology to take ET home." Who is ET, and how do we know where their home is? Did they learn this through knowing the secrets of mountain ranges?
I was actually born in Parker, but my reservation's up at Hopi, so I spent a lot of summers up there. And you would see craft all the time, almost every night. And then we have a thing called, they say they come to watch us. They say when they're flying by, they're not here to scare you, they're watching you. But we actually, the last time I saw it was probably about 50 years ago. In our village, we have what they call, I was playing one of those watchers. And, well, it might have been more than 6 years ago, because I used to have a tourism business. And 2 of my clients were up there, and they actually wanted to look at archaeological sites. And of course, we went to the Grand Gallery in Utah, and I was telling them how, like, these are actually aliens. This is a portal. I was telling them all this stuff, and they didn't really believe that. But they had actually booked me for a whole month. They rented a house in Sedona, and we were going to different parts of Arizona. Anyway, we go back to Sedona, and then one of my cousins calls me and says, "Hey, we're having a camp this weekend. Why don't you come up?" This is up in Palaka, Arizona, a Hopi reservation. So I and my clients, I go, "Hey, we got an opportunity, man. See this now." So we're going up there, and so then I started telling them about, about the alien connection up there. And there's a really strong particular, where the ley lines and the electromagnetic lines really go right around the Winslow area. Of course, to the west is Flagstaff and the mountains, which we call
that's where our Kachinas live, in a mountain. They're alien connected as well, our Kachina doll. And so anyway, we go up to the dance. And I tell them we have this thing called a watcher up there, kind of a clayish yellow skin tone. It's real short. And I told them, the last time I saw it, I was a little boy. And I was just conversing. And so we go to a different village where the dance is at. And we're standing, I remember it was called the Eagle House. So anyway, the Kachinas are dancing, and then they take a break, and then to one side I saw a group of kids coming out in a pack, and I knew that was strange. So I looked in the middle of the group, and lo and behold, man, there was that watcher. And so I tell the ladies, I whisper because there's people around us. I say, don't scream, don't, say, oh my God. Tell them everything what not to do. Don't act surprised. I said, but tell me what you see in the middle of that group. And one of the words was, we need to leave. So we did leave. I mean, it was quiet. We drove from there. It's about maybe 4 hours from Hopi to Sedona. Maybe 4.5. Quiet the whole time. I was grateful that they got to see it, and I did explain a little bit more to them about it. But I'm in the process of writing stories called Ta'a's Tales. Ta'a is a special uncle, the one that you don't want to go to with your parents, and you need to go talk to your Ta'a. He's the one that's going to set you straight. Some Ta'as are good, some of them are mean, but they will help you.
Yeah.
So I'm writing a book called Ta'a's Tales. And one of those tales is about that watcher. And so I called with my client probably about 2 years ago. Because I've seen and exposed myself to a lot of stuff. And I said, I just want to make sure we're out there, that we saw that this really occurred. And she goes, yep, John, it was real. So that's a story of a watcher out there.
There is written records of human beings interacting with the watchers, not just in the Bible, but also in the Hopi creation stories as well. These interactions with humans caused this group of angels to rebel against the Creator and fall to earth. The watchers used the mountains as gateways to visit and leave this world. Instead of asking who built the pyramids, ask why were they built. In my opinion, the pyramids were built because the humans who were around during the times of the watchers were trying to replicate the technology that was taking place in Mount Hermon. Mountain ranges have high peaks. The location in the Mount Hermon range where the transfiguration and the fall of the watchers is on its highest peak. It's possible that the watchers gave humans the designs on how to construct and replicate ways to travel as they did. The oath the fallen angels took was to corrupt the bloodline of the human race at that time to prevent the birth of Jesus. The Bible says the fallen angels will return, and the Nephilim existed after the flood of Noah. Is there a chance that human interactions with the watchers has continued up until present day? It's possible. Are they actively trying to get back where they came from in a continued attempt to corrupt human beings? That would mean our government, or sections of that government, would have some sort of agreement with fallen angels. Whatever the case may be, This would make perfect sense as to why Christians associate aliens as demonic beings. The topic of UFOs and them being a threat has dominated most major media outlets over the past 4 years. Prior to this, it was non-existent outside of the UFO community. I'm here to tell you that through my many personal experiences that date back to 1997, I have never been in fear, probed, or harmed in any way. Looking at some of the actions of these UFOs and UAPs displayed in this footage, they have plenty of chances to harm or abduct with ease. But it's almost like they're in their own little world, just interacting in the sky, mimicking one another, as if they are dancing in front of the incoming thunderstorm, off in the distance. They continue these actions, as if no one will ever notice, with up and down movements in short patterns over the city before they finally decide to change directions and eventually head out. In this clip, you'll see that there are multiple orbs traveling in the night sky. Due to the fact that Steve is filming in night vision, he's not able to zoom out, widen the shot, and capture all the UAPs at once. As they begin to descend behind this mountain, you'll notice the angle in which they take. Using Google Earth, you can clearly see there are no runways or places to land of any sort. So where did they go? This mountain range you see is known as the Spring Mountains, where Red Rock Canyon is located, and another area in specific called the Charcoal Kilns. This entire area was inhabited by another form of Nephilim, and surprisingly not too long ago. At this point, if you haven't noticed, Mount Hermon is not the only location where the Watchers and Giants dwelled. This area in Las Vegas was once home to the red-haired giants, and Red Rock Canyon was a place of comfort. Yes, the Watchers mixed and mingled with humans in this area. It's all about the mountains that run along the western seaboard.
Like trajectory of craft. In other words, they'll use, ley lines, electromagnetic lines. And the other part that I do know about mountains is the type of minerals they hold.
If you follow these mountains, you'll discover a majority of the sightings are in these areas. As news reports continue to spike on unidentified flying objects, crash UAPs, and even 10-foot tall beings, it's important that you ask one simple question as you begin to digest the information. Are they extraterrestrial or man-made?
Okay, so throughout that little that section of Revelations, one of those seven angels
were messengers to. Now you have to think though, when you read the Bible, you have to read it in context. Who God is talking to. God sent these angels as messengers to these churches, like the churches of. I think it's the Church of Philadelphia, when you mentioned where I know your deeds, I know your good deeds. He's talking to the people of that time in that area. I see your good deeds, but you're not doing enough. So the angels are giving messages to these people, just like the Church of Ephesus. They were doing, they were being converted from paganism or Judaism to Christianity. Angels are messengers. They're messengers and they're warriors. So they were sent to deliver a message to the church, to this community of people, to these churches. So when they say churches, this a community. And so each one had a message, like, God saying, I see your good deeds, I see what you're doing, but you don't quite have it yet. You're not quite there, even though you think you're there and you want to do right, but you're not quite there. And like I said, the one, I think it's Ephesus, where they converted into Christianity. They did the conversion, but they were still worshiping, the gods of this and the sexual gods. They were still having all kind of weird sexual stuff going on. And then, like the Church of Corinth, where they had the community potluck, and everybody bring in the food, but the rich and the powerful ate the food up first, and then the poor came in, and there was nothing left. So, so God was saying, this is not how it's done. You come together and sit down all together. So that's what that is. Messages to these 7 communities, what they were doing, who converted from Judaism or paganism, who were Gentiles, into Christian, to receive Christ and his following and stuff like that. So he was telling them, this is what you're doing, and you need to change it, or there was one church where they seen the Holy Spirit in action up front, firsthand, but yet you're still acting like pagans. So that's what that's all about.
Okay, because the reason what led me to believe that one of the churches, I believe it was the Church of Ephesus or Ephesus, where God said the victorious angel, it said the 7 things are the right to eat from the tree of life, won't be hurt by second death, which sounds like rebirth, some of the hidden manna, which is the name in white stone. So when it comes to direct, I don't want to say direct bloodlines, but some of the people that walk around amongst us today are descendants of fallen angels.
Well, think about these people that have done these mass shootings. These, the like young kids, and you look in their eyes. There's an emptiness. There's a blank. There's no soul. You look at all those people, those like young kids, and those, just look in their eyes. They all have the same look, a blank look. And they say your eyes are the mirror to your soul. And when you look in someone's eyes and you don't see nothing but blank, it makes me wonder.
That's an extremely. That's extremely interesting.
And have this blank stare in their eyes. And who is their descendant? Where are they? What bloodline? Are they coming from? So I believe. Now I don't know if it's true, but I believe that it's something that just it's still going on, but we don't know it. We do not know it.
I mean, no, that is an interesting point. I mean, once again, if with somebody of your background, dissecting the Bible and going through it and everything, preaching and things like that, that's a very good point. That's interesting. That's very interesting.
Take a look at all those masters, like those young, to the young kids, to the old, the older people, and they put and line them up, and they look alike. They look the same. Look at their eyes. There's something dark and evil. And that's what these angels represent. It's evil. They don't have a soul. And if they do, they sold their souls to Satan. So, I believe that they continue to marry on and made children, and that's probably part of what Lilith was about. And,
Do you think that some of those angels that were fallen or kicked out, do you think that it's a possibility that they try to get back in the good graces of God?
okay.
All right, Mom. Love you.
All right. Okay. All right. Love you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.